Hey guys, so welcome to another episode of Headspace Hangout. Today I have a topic that I think is really interesting, really different, and I think you will be intrigued as to what comes out of it. This person deals with a lot of things that I think a lot of people tend to not focus on or try to push to the side. So, Amanda, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's dive into it. Like I always say, could you please let us know your unique profession?
Yes, so my unique profession is an addiction relationship coach, and there are a lot of people out here in our world struggling with addiction, dependency, problematic behavior, whatever we want to call it. And I support the loved ones of those people to help them get back to living their great life, take control of their life, live their life in a healthy way, so that if it feels right for them, they can then support their lovely person to do the same.
Wow. And I think, like we chatted earlier on, I've just, in all the 31 years of my life, I don't think I've actually ever met someone in that field. So I think the information that you have and that you should share a bit of that in this podcast will go a long way. And I think might open up a lot of people's eyes because they might have been dealing with this without even knowing.
Yeah.
Um, so I wanted to ask, you've got Addiction Makes Three. Could you explain what that means?
Absolutely. So, Addiction Makes Three is my started out as my Instagram handle back in late 2019. And at that time, I was on my knees, figuratively and literally, with my loved ones struggle with addiction. And I didn't know what to do. And I was just at my wit's end and I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know how to handle this day to day that I found myself in. And I was seeking anonymous support through the online community. And so I got to Addiction Makes Three, and that it feels like there's this third person, this third thing in your relationship. So, whatever your relationship is, it's not just the two of you, there's this third thing that is there, whether it's right up intimately or in the middle ground, the background, like it's just lurking, and your days are impacted by it, your nights are impacted by it, decisions, choices, life. It just feels like there's three. So addiction makes three. It is the third thing in your relationship. So that's where I started out back in 2019, and I wasn't coaching back then. I was just this same as everybody else, confused, didn't know what to do, just felt paralyzed by this and was seeking support. And then when I decided to pursue the role of coaching here and working in the space and supporting people, which we can talk about a bit more if you like,
Yeah,
I
of course.
thought it still feels right. It still describes what it's like. So I have just kept that. And I also have a podcast, and it's Addiction Makes Three, the podcast, and let's just call it what it is.
Yes.
Um, and so that is it. Addiction Makes Three.
And guys, just for your knowledge, please follow her because I think everyone has, I would say, as you said, a third entity, something that you can feel is there. You just don't know how to address. What would your everyday kind of client's expectation, not really expectation, more your, how do someone reach out to you and start, should I say?
Yeah.
And yeah,
It's a long process. And just for context, for the lovely people listening here, I am formerly an accountant. So I've done a complete 180 in my life because the support here is not enough. And what support there is, I found it so lacking. And I just decided people deserve better. We deserve better. So that's how I got here. And how would someone start here? And this is a really long road, typically, is how it works. And there goes many phases and stages, which is devastating. And first of all, you have to observe that there is a problem, right? So, and that can take a long time because having a problem, even if it's a parent child, a sibling, a spousal, relationship, we
Yeah.
don't want anyone to have a problem. So we might be observing some weird behavior that doesn't make sense, and people are not showing up in the way they used to, or life is looking and feeling different than it used to. They're doing weird things, and maybe we're catching them in a few lies, or there's a few inconsistencies. It doesn't quite make sense. It's not adding up. That could be the start of something like not quite being right. But at that point, you're not thinking, oh, they've got a dependency on alcohol, or they've got a dependency on gaming, or whatever it is. You just think, oh, that's a bit weird, or it doesn't quite make sense, or why are they doing that? And then it goes to the next phase of it starts to really impact your life.
Yeah.
And that could look like you can't really rely on them as much as you used to, or as much as you would like to, or it affects weekend plans. And if you've got a family, it impacts how they might be showing up with your children, or how they're showing up at work, or do they consistently go to work? Are they having more sick days? Are they losing their job? Do you, in yourself, in your own behavior, are you holding your breath, just wondering what the day is going to go like? Or there's a tricky situation that comes up, and you just on eggshells with the conversation because you don't want to necessarily have it, but you've got to for whatever reason. Um, and just a demise of the situation. And then fold in something else, which is the lying, the manipulation, and the gaslighting from your lovely person, which all makes sense because they probably don't want to be behaving like this either. They're ashamed, they're embarrassed, and they can't stop. So they will do everything they can to keep doing this thing, even though they don't really want to. And it's hard and it's devastating. So when you start doubting yourself, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe I'm the one with a problem. So this can go on for years, right? And it's really hard. And it's getting, it's eating away at your well-being. It's eating away at you living life. It's eating away at, if you are a parent, maybe how you're showing up as a parent. That's definitely how it impacted me. I wasn't the mother I wanted to be. I was like yelling at my kids and wasn't present and not enjoying all the things I should have been enjoying. Could be impacting work. Like you could be worried about your own work, and you're worried at work, and you're sitting there just worried, worried, worried. And then eventually you realize there's a problem. You come out of that denial. This is an issue. And then what we get to is most people, myself included, 100%, you put all your energy into trying to initially fix your loved one. All you want them to do is to recognize that what they're doing is like not healthy. It's a problem. To please stop doing it. Can't you see? So you go down that road of dawn till dusk. What can I do to help them, fix them, change them, get them to this doctor, get them to that doctor, get them to this therapist, go to this center, go to the support meeting? And by golly, we really throw our all into that phase, because at that time we genuinely think, and I did too, if we do everything we can to, and I say in inverted commas, fix a lovely person, to fix their problem, to get them to stop drinking, to stop doing the drugs, to stop gambling, to stop smoking, whatever it is, life will be good again. So all of our energy, our time, our resources, our mental bandwidth We will set ourselves on fire to keep that other person warm. That's the kind of extremes people go to. And then, depending on the circles you play in, you will realize that actually you need help too. And then you might look to groups like Al Anon, Narcanon, Gam-Anon. You might go to therapy. You might just vent to friends. And some of that might work, some of it might not. And then you might find someone like me. And this process is long, and I wish it wasn't as long. I wish we could just skip that middle part and people could just come to someone like me or someone similar to what I do to get actual tools and strategies that work, that align to your values, that are the framework to get yourself good again, healthy, well, and increase that capacity. And know what you stand for, know how to handle tricky situations to then be in a healthier place to support your loved one do the same if that's right for you. And that's how people come into my world.
Wow. Like you said, that is definitely a long process. And that kind of hits home with me because I think when I was growing up, my dad was an alcoholic. Never acknowledged it. And obviously, a lot of people from the outside would always not really see it, but my mom and I would see it a lot. And I think she never had the support of what you're explaining now. And I
Mm.
saw it, I was very young, and I only started realizing it about 16, 17 years old that drinking a bottle to two bottles of whiskey a night and barely talking every single night for years wasn't normal. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And if I knew what I knew now, I would actually change that situation and try. But what I've realized in life sometimes is you can't help those who don't want to help themselves. And that is the sad truth. Like, you can try so many times, like I did with my dad, and it just went in one ear and out the other. And long story short, he did pass away, and the body did give away because of just constantly drinking and not eating. So yeah, I think my mom at a stage definitely needed support, but I was just under the impression, young and dumb, no knowledge. Why are my parents doing this? Why are they drinking? Why are they
Mm.
not physically there? Where they were fighting their own demons, fighting their
Yeah.
own struggles, and trying to be a parent as well as fight addiction. So I think what you're doing is really, really awesome. I just wish there were a lot more people doing what you're doing. Because I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think what you're just saying there as well, it's you don't know it's a problem. And this is where we get into the society, the culture that people live in. And if everyone around you is doing something similar or the same, it's like, is it a problem?
Yeah.
So definitely where I live in Australia, it's alcohol is the number one cause of, the most of the devastation. And it's hard because alcohol is just the fabric of the societal get-togethers. It is weaved into everything. A christening, a birth of a baby, the passing of somebody, a celebration, a commiseration, a lunch, a brunch, a kid's birthday party, a dinner, a
It's everything.
picnic. It is everything. It is come over for dinner, have a drink, let's go out, have a drink. It is so if it's around you, it's hard to firstly, if it's you, alcohol doesn't serve me, right? But it's hard if it's like in everything. And then if you're the loved one, oh, so and so does it, or they seem to be doing it in a similar way than my loved one. So is it really a problem? And the sad thing is, not many people know there is this type of support available. And even when they do know, they still think that they're not, that they don't need help or they're not worthy of help. And if their loved one would just get to rehab, then everything will be okay.
Yeah.
And it's not true. And I don't say that to fear people. And I don't say that because rehab does do some good. And for sure, there are so many great programs out there. There's great rehabs, there's great people doing great work. And then there's some not so great people out there and some not so great rehabs. But it isn't the start and stop, and people go to rehab for a time. You're with your loved one for the rest of the time.
Exactly.
And it's you can have the most influence over your loved one over any other person. And I know you just said, people have got to help themselves, and it's absolutely true. But what we can do here is when we see that window of opportunity to have a kind conversation, to know what to say, and to be able to lean into that in a healthy way. And that's what we can do. We can influence, we can support, we can encourage, but we can't do any of that if we're up to here with our stress and our worries and, our own kind of demons, as it were. We can't leverage that window of opportunity. And if someone's in active addiction, the window is small and it can be really infrequent. So if you have better tools and strategies in your pocket and you're feeling good in yourself, you're feeling able and capable and you have capacity, you can see that window and go, now's the time, and have the conversation. Doesn't mean it's going to work or work right that minute, but we can keep planting the seeds.
I think that's very important. I think it's just planting that seed, and if someone keeps hearing it and they start to hopefully change their mindset. And I think that's the most important thing, is people's mindset and who surrounds them through their darkest and tough times. Yeah, it's what you said now is actually hit home, and it actually makes a lot of sense, just thinking back on a lot of relationships that I've had in the past, I think with my parents. When would someone, if they realize that they need help, not just say in Australia, but in the world, so that, because I'm from South Africa, obviously you can tell by my accent, what would be the first point of reach someone should do? Would you say a friend, a family member? Ideally, I don't know. It's a hard.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really hard and
So
embarrassing.
personally, for me, so I work with people around the world. So I work with people, obviously time zones allowing. I work with people around the world, and that has been the greatest gift, to meet the most beautiful people from all different countries. And the first step I'd say for anybody is show yourself some compassion and grace. And then think about, because if I just rewind a step in my mind, for the loved ones, we too have the shame and the stigma here, which is what keeps us in isolation. It's what keeps us quiet. It's what keeps us from reaching out for support, because we don't want people to judge us, judge our family, judge our loved ones. And this is when we're in the mindset of, if I just get them to rehab and if I just get them fixed, then we can all move on with life and we can just pretend this hasn't happened. So I'm not going to tell my best friend, my sister, my mum, my work colleague, because I'm going to get this sorted and, we're just going to move on. And there's so much shame and stigma here in addiction. And this is what a big purpose of mine is, which is why I'm here doing this work, to keep sharing my story so that other people can see that, hey, it's impacted her life. She looks like a pretty normalish, average person. And it's not, addiction isn't what we think it is. It isn't who we think it is. It doesn't look like what we think it looks like. It looks like me. It looks like you. So that is a big part of my work here, is just if we can try and get people having the conversation earlier, and that really long process that I shared, we will get better outcomes for people earlier. Better outcomes for the loved ones, better outcomes for the lovely people struggling, if we can have these conversations earlier. So if you are listening to this thinking, yes, I'm in that situation that Amanda's talking about, and I have a lovely person in my life that's struggling here with like a substance and a behavior, find someone, and I speak about this as your A team. Who has got you? Who is your support crew? And thinking about your A team, about people that won't judge you, people that aren't going to offer unsolicited advice, and people that are there that can catch you. And you might get burnt along the way. You might think, oh, you know, Sam is a good person for my A team. I'm going to go and speak to them about this. And it turns out that that's not the case,
Yeah.
but find people to speak to just say, hey, I've got something going on. Can I speak to you about it? And this is a bit of a inside secret. The best people to find to support you are people that have gone through something themselves. Any kind of adversity does not have to be addiction. Anyone, those people know. They know you don't want advice. They know you don't just want platitudes and one-liners and be strong and you can do this. They know you don't want that. And they're not going to judge you for whatever's going on in your life because they've been through some stuff too. But it does require you being courageous enough to be vulnerable to have that first conversation. And I've had some of the most beautiful people come into my life when I've had that conversation. And it could just be over the water cooler at work, at the school pickup line, at the gym. You will be so surprised. And the reality is, a lot of people have gone through something. And those are 100% your people, just to not keep it inside anymore.
Well answered. That was amazing. I wanted to ask, going back to the alcohol and the substance and all that kind of, you said in Australia how everything is alcohol based. Should I say like parties? I could say the exact same in South Africa. It's crazy. It's cheap, and that was the norm, growing up.
Mm,
And I think where I kind of took a turn was like I did drink, but I wasn't drinking every night, all night, things like that. But when my daughter was born, she's 11 months now. When my daughter was born, I said I will not never drink again because I wanna kind of be a better father in the sense of not having that, because I know within me that I have an addictive personality, that I think if I like something, I like it too much in a sense. And I think my wife knows that for sure. And I think what we've always done is be as forward and open as possible, because I feel if I'm lying to her, I think that's kind of, she's too clever. She finds out anyway. And like you said, it kind of breaks people apart. So where I was going with that is where, so just for example, my wife and I, we're alone in Australia. Where would we go if we don't have friends, family, or I wouldn't go to a work person? Like, what
yes.
is the next step? Would it be a certain online platform or
Yeah, I mean, there are, and this is where no one size fits all. And we as humans, we're like, we can try a few things and see what fits. So, there is Al-Anon or AA, and NA if it's drugs, narcotics, Narcanon, there's Gam-Anon for gambling. There's Smart Recovery, which is a different model to the others. There's, if you are religious, like kind of the best support kind of community is there. And therapy, GPs, and then after people have usually tried all those things, they come and find me.
I hope they come to you first after this.
Yeah, I do too. And what I offer is, I offer a safe place, obviously, and I offer group coaching. So you see other lovely people in the virtual room that are just like you, super lovely, living life, and just have this struggle that's also kind of in their life as well. And yeah, I wish more people would find me, and that's one of my things that I'm really focused on this year is visibility, and so people know that I exist, and to know they're worth it, and change is possible. Change is 100% possible. And then, like you said earlier, that's just wonderful, like that self-awareness that you've got, like that you have that awareness of, I do really go 100%. I am like all or nothing. And so if I am something, I'm 100%, and that might not be great,
Like
you know?
I don't understand. My wife's a prime example. She can buy a Kit Kat, have two fingers, and put it away.
Yeah.
Who does that? Like, I'll eat that. Someone
Yeah.
would go out and have a beer or two, call it a night, and go home. Like,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't know why I am. Maybe it's probably my self-control. I want to have 44 beers.
Yeah.
So I've just decided that, because I can't control that, let's just kind of stay away from that. And I think
Yeah.
that's where I am right now. You know what I mean?
I think that's great. And that is the thing. Not everyone is the same. So I think that's something really, it's good news, right? This is good news.
Yeah.
When you, and I would say, like your situation, I would describe that as I don't have an off switch. I just don't. I've got no off switch. And that's, some people just don't have an off switch. And so when here people say in Australia and like South Africa and probably the UK and probably in America, Canada as well, just have one. We're in a
Oh,
society of just have one or just come out for one. It's like I legit cannot have one, so I have none, and that's how where some people are, no off switch. And then some people use like alcohol, substances because of pain. They want to numb, there's trauma, they want to avoid whatever it is. And I know it sounds a bit unusual to say that's good news, but the good news here is there are many paths to getting where we are now. Like if you are struggling with a behavior that's not serving you, or a habit or a dependency, there are many paths that have got people here. So there are many paths out. So don't just go to AA or go to rehab or go to wherever and think, oh, this is just what I've got to do. It's not really working, but I'm just going to keep flogging this dead horse and then see what happens. Like there are so many paths out, and I get annoyed with myself that many years ago I was so fixated on my loved one going to AA. I was like, just go to meetings. And that was like my thing, you haven't gone to meetings. And I just had no knowledge, right? You don't know what you don't know. It's classic. So there are so many different paths out. There are so many different ways. And obviously now I know a lot better. And I just wish that I had the knowledge now that, I didn't have
that's
earlier on.
I think we could all say that, hey, and I
Yeah.
think you and I will probably say that in the next 10 years.
Yeah. And so
Um,
if people can find me earlier, I can share that with people, and we talk about expectation management, where are people at, what they can realistically expect or hope from their loved one at whatever phase they're in. And that just helps so much with connection, with relationship, maintaining relationships, not, moving further apart, with rebuilding trust, and all that kind of, we touched on that earlier, like the trust. Trust is absolutely decimated here. We understand why the lies, right? That makes sense in itself. And trust is destroyed. So rebuilding trust is so important. And if you can have someone helping you do that, you're just going to get to where you want to go quicker.
of course, I'm not a counselor or a person of any background of this, but I just think, and it's cliche, so excuse me, but I think open communication right now is the best thing you can do. I think the more you lie, the more you want to hide things, it's just the worse and deeper it's going to get. At least be honest. If you don't want to tell your partner something, then you should know that it's wrong. But like you said, everyone is different. So please, whoever's watching, going through this, don't judge me. I'm not perfect. So
No
yeah,
one's perfect.
what exactly? I think what I'm learning and going through the podcast since I've started on my second month now, so still learning a lot.
Amazing.
But vulnerability, I think that for me, when I started, I didn't realize that how big it is. Speaking to a variety of different guests and kind of the subjects or the what we're talking about kind of brings out everyone's story. And a lot of people are scared to admit that, but also are scared to tell their story. And I think when a lot of people hear stories like you just explained, hopefully that it sparks and they're like, wow, that's me. That's what I needed to hear. And that takes them to the next step. And that's why that's why I started this, just to get information out there that people can realize that they're not alone, because we all get so busy with our lives that we're not thinking about our friends and our family. And maybe that's the truth. Sometimes you're just so focused, like a horse with your home life. And if your home life is not great, then yeah. So,
But
but
it's
yeah,
so true. And through, shame dies when we tell stories in safe places. I think Brene Brown said that. So when we share our stories, and that is one of my main missions, goals, visions here, is to share my story and to keep speaking about this. And a lot of people are very uncomfortable that I speak about this. And I would invite them to get curious with that. And millions and millions and millions of people around the world are impacted by addiction. Millions of people in Australia. The population is what, 25 million? And there are millions of people in Australia impacted by this. It is not a small little inconvenience. It is impacting members of our community, like people we know. And for sure, everyone that listens to this podcast is going to know either someone struggling with a problematic behavior or someone impacted by someone else's addiction. 100%. When we can have these conversations, the shame dies. And when the shame dies, people are getting the help and support they need earlier on. And we're getting better outcomes for not only just one person, but whole families.
and that's what's important, because at the end of the day, one parent's or one child's, I wouldn't say emotions, but one person's addiction, the detriment it has on a family. I don't think some people realize that until it's too late. And also long-term effects. I think that's what's so important, because like you said in the beginning, you tried your best and you went AA. AA is going to be the way. Like there's so many paths out there. We don't know what we don't know. And
Yeah.
we just got to try. At the end of the day, you just got to try be the best person that you can and help your partner, your friend. The thing is with me, I try to help everyone, and that's, yeah, I don't know if that's the right approach, because some
Think,
people don't kind of need the help, but yeah,
yeah,
that's just that's how I am. And then sometimes bridges get burnt and kind of take it too far, and then I'm like, why did I try to help that person? I don't even talk to them anymore. So
yeah.
yeah,
I
that's
think you've got to start with yourself,
well said.
and you've got to help yourself put your oxygen mask on. Like, you're no good to anyone else. Like, I use this analogy all the time of when you go on an airplane and the air stewards or whoever might say, hey, if there's a bit of turbulence or some stuff going on, the oxygen masks will fall, put it on. Secure your own oxygen mask before you try and help other people. And in that scenario, it's literally to breathe. Secure your own oxygen mask so you literally can breathe, and then you can be of help and of service to those people around you. Like, if you can't breathe, you're no good for anybody. So sometimes we've just got to put our own oxygen masks on so we're good for ourselves so we can breathe, help ourselves. And then if it feels right, if it feels aligned and it's important to us, then we can lean in and help other people to our own capacity. I used to be a massive people pleaser, and I took my self-worth and my self-value from being of service to others. And that is hard. Now I don't. I have turned a corner because I was doing it for the wrong reasons, and I was exhausting myself. And then I had nothing in the tank left for me. And then I was resentful. Why don't other people do what I do? Why aren't they helping me in the way I help them? And at the end of the day, you can only control how you show up. And so I got to control and choose. I can offer this amount of help. This is what I've got. And this is great. This is it. And so finding what feels like a good fit for you and that we're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, I think I need to take that on board, because the people pleaser for me is a very big one that I really battle with. But that's a topic for another day. Obviously, we can learn every day. Amanda, so one last thing I'd like to ask, and this is always just my last question. What if you could give some advice or a quote or something that you would have loved to say to yourself or heard back in the day when you were going through what you were going through? What would it be?
My favorite kind of mantra or quote is, we're only given one life and we must live it.
Amen. I don't need to say more after that. I think we get so tied up, I think, after all that, that we think every day we're going to have the next 40 years of our life, where life is short and you need to live it.
Live it. And it's not a dress rehearsal. And my dad said it to me when I was about 16 years old. He said, Amanda, this is not a dress rehearsal. This is life.
Hmm.
We don't get a try again, a go again. This is it. And whenever I find myself, getting off track, for me, this is not a dress rehearsal. I've got to live life. And how do I get back on track?
Hmm. Appreciate that. Amanda, so what I'll do is, obviously I'll tag you in this, I'll do whatever, and I really hope that all my followers obviously join your social media. And please, guys, if you do have any questions or queries, please send Amanda a message. I hope that's okay with you.
Absolutely. I hang out on Instagram a lot. So we'll put all the details there. Send me a DM. And if you feel like this has resonated, like, feel free to book in a connection call and we can talk about what could make sense for you.
I appreciate that. Amanda, thank you so much for your time, and we'll be in contact in the next few days.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.